The man sitting at the gambling table, the chips in front of him have already piled up like a mountain. An unprecedented abnormal situation is being staged. The casino is encountering continuous capital losses. This is not a deviation of consciousness luck, but a comprehensive rout of the overall operation level. Everyone feels helpless about it. Such huge losses are not an exception. Nearly 5 months. The same bizarre losses occurred one after another. Walter lost $5 million. Caesar lost $4.23 million, all of which are done by the same person. He did not invade the back-end system, did not measure the probability of cheating, but through precise calculation, Atlantic City 3 gaming venues voluntarily signed a cooperation agreement, and this agreement from the perspective of probability has already destined him to be invincible in 2008. A serious economic recession swept through none at all. Financial institution group went bankrupt one after another. The credit market collapsed completely, and within just 7 days, hundreds of thousands of people lost their jobs. In this economic turmoil, Atlantic City's gaming industry has gradually come to an end. In 2006, the total revenue of the whole industry reached $5.20 billion. By 2010, it fell sharply to $330 billion. 5 years, the revenue was reduced by 37%. The revenue continued to decline for 29 consecutive months. The once noisy place has now become empty. The operator even closed half of the lighting equipment to cut expenses. Those high-end loan customers in the industry either declared bankruptcy due to the economic crisis or heightened entertainment expenses. Serious differences broke out within the casino high level. The marketing department insisted that it must launch a very attractive welfare policy for large customers to save high-end customers. The customer source, while the risk control management department is strongly opposed, they believe that every concession to the rules will weaken the casino's reliance on mathematical probability to establish a profit advantage, which is to ensure the long-term profitability of the casino, the core protection for many years. The opinions of the risk control team have always dominated, and the sustainable plunge in revenue data has become an irrefutable reality. At the end of 2010, Atlantic City, most of the gambling venues' marketing plans were finally implemented, and an unprecedented loss subsidy policy was launched. The subsidy ratio was gradually increased from the original 10% to 15%. In December of the same year, some venues directly increased the subsidy ratio to 20%. 20% loss subsidy. In the gaming industry, this is equivalent to actively putting the winning chips into the hands of opponents. The vast majority of players don't understand the core logic of it and only treat this policy as a small compensation after a loss. I don't know that a master of probability calculation has quietly arrived in Atlantic City. In the eyes of the management of major casinos, Johnson is the perfect target customer. They believe that this is a rich man with deep financial resources, casual situation, and lack of rational control. His appearance has become a perfect target for the pursuit of major casinos. However, brilliant hunters have always been accustomed to appearing as prey. Johnson's visit is not accidental. He participated in the game here a year ago. Just because he found that the existing rules were unprofitable, he decisively withdrew and left. He was always waiting for the moment when the casinos took the initiative to throw out olives and branches. When the personnel of Volta took the initiative to call and offered to open their exclusive high-end interests. Johnson directly requires that if a large amount match is carried out, the rules of the match must be renegotiated. The negotiations between the two sides are carried out in the VIP room of the casino. On the one hand, the marketing team of high-end gamblers is eager to recruit, and on the other hand, Johnson, who is holding a pen and paper, quickly calculates the probability of mental calculation. The various requirements he put forward seem to be unreasonable picks of the rich, but in fact each one hides precise mathematical logic. The card boots he requires to use can only use 6 decks of cards. The fewer the number of rows, the weaker the inherent advantage of the casino. At the same time, the dealer must stop making up cards when he gets 17 points. He also requires that once the same card appears, it can be divided, and 2 or more sets of cards are automatically generated. Every rule adjustment is constantly compressing the profit margin of the venue, and his core requirement is that 20% of the loss is returned to the water. The loss exceeds $500,000 in a single day. The venue needs to be returned according to 20% of the loss amount. And daily recalculation, the management is caught in a dilemma. The subsidy ratio of 20% is indeed extremely high, but they have already provided 10% to 15% subsidies for other big customers. For tens of thousands of players to increase by 5% seems worthwhile, and the data calculation results show that even if all concessions are made, the casino still retains a slight profit advantage of 0.263%. Although it is almost flat, but it is still the casino that has the upper hand. But the calculator made a fatal mistake. Their data model is based on the average of long-term games. But Johnson never intended for a long-term game. He strictly follows the established target form. Once the profit breaks through 1 million, he can leave the market. The loss is close to $500,000. He will stop decisively. And the next day after receiving the subsidy, in December 2010 in the Borta Stadium, Johnson sat at the card table, and the licensing staff talked easily, seemingly under the appearance of casual is the most accurate decision-making judgment. The early stage of the game, the casino did not have the slightest concern. In their opinion, no matter how good the luck eventually reversed, Johnson can rely on never luck, but strictly implement the stop-loss index camp plan. Win the card will lock in the profit, and lose the card will have a high subsidy. When Borta found the problem and banned it from continuing to play, Johnson won nearly $5 million with cumulative wins. The venue set a record for the highest loss in history, and some people thought that a rights dispute would break out. But Johnson just calmly exchanged chips and walked out of the casino. In the early spring of 2011, Johnson appeared at Caesar's Palace. In fact, rumors had already spread in the industry. Everyone knew that someone won a huge amount of money from Borta by virtue of compliance operations. Caesar's management was full of fear. They knew Johnson's record, but they still signed a nearly unanimous cooperation agreement. Half of it was due to greed for large-scale customers, and half was due to fear that customers would fall behind their peers. Now Johnson is on schedule. The venue has launched comprehensive security measures, and the monitoring staff will keep an eye on his every move. Once violations are found, the contract will be terminated immediately. But they ignored the most crucial point. Johnson never need illegal operation, just normal participation in the game to win. The whole game process, Johnson has always been calm. Security personnel keep an eye on the monitoring screen, has not found any trace of calculating the card face. Ordinary players will adjust the bet according to the trend of the game. The disadvantage is small bets. The advantage is heavy bets. And Johnson, every game is full of the maximum limit. The amount of help has never changed, which makes everyone confused. Do not rely on the card face calculation. Where does his confidence come from? With the game. Johnson's chip amount has exceeded 1 million, 2 million to 3 million, and finally frozen frame at $423 million. Casino executives were forced to order the termination of the game. The dealer silently put away the cards. The supervisor came forward to inform continue to play. The reason is that the venue chips have all been used up. Johnson smiled indifferently, put away the chips and went to the checkout page. Caesar Casino immediately included it in the blacklist, but it was too late. The two venues accumulated losses of $9.23 million. The teacher has become a foregone conclusion. Johnson's final battle is the tropical-style casino. This casino witnessed the fiasco of the first two, knew all the inside information, but still took the initiative to issue an invitation to Johnson. In April 2011, the VIP area of the tropical-style casino, surrounded by layers of people. Ordinary players have stopped watching. Night fell. Johnson officially started. A few hours before the victory and defeat alternated. He lost a few rounds of Big Goose stationed in the horse. Casino executives slightly relieved. Then he continued to silver. Nervous, the atmosphere once again enveloped the audience. The lost subsidy mechanism, so that he always maintained a stable state of mind. Lost a large amount of stay in the horse. He knew that there would be a corresponding proportion of subsidies to return. The silver medal can harvest full profits each round of matches. The advantage of asymmetry is tilted towards him around 2 a.m. The situation of the Taiwan Bureau completely reversed. The decisive moment quietly arrived. Johnson got a pair of 8 points, decisively chose to split the card, and then made up to 2 8-points, 3 consecutive splits, and finally formed a 4-game match with an 8-point start. Each bet is as high as $100,000, and the official's famous brand is 5 points at an absolute disadvantage. Johnson is the 4-game card type to fill the card in turn. After getting the small number of cards, all 4 games choose double bet. The card table instantly stacked up $800,000 of chips. The audience fell into a dead silence. The dealer opened the case card for 10 points. The total number of points reached 15 points. Was forced to fill the card again after getting 10 points. Instant explosion of cards. Johnson won 4 games. A single game won $800,000. Just a few minutes later, the winning streak continued again. 3 rounds of games won $1.20 million. This moment, the top management of the tropical-style casino completely collapsed. The security personnel were at a loss. The crowd was shocked. Everyone knew that they were witnessing the history of the industry. When the total amount of chips exceeded $5.80 million, the casino management completely gave up resistance. The supervisor stepped forward to terminate the game. Without any explanation, only announced the official end of the game. Johnson got up and left less than 12 hours. He won the tropical-style gambling. The whole month's revenue once again refreshed the industry's single loss record. 3 games of cumulative profit of $15.1 million. The whole process did not violate any laws, did not violate any venue rules. The core of winning is just pure numbers. Learning probability application a few weeks later, the tropical-style casino announced that the person in charge of Mark was relieved of his post. The official announcement was bland, did not publicly leave his job, and Johnson's game was related. Mark lost his job. The casino suffered a huge loss of $5.8 million, and Johnson had already taken a flight and returned to his hometown safely.